thank you everyone for joining today. We're very excited to have Serendipity team in London and to have partnered with them for the inaugural SAF Curatorial Research Fellowship. We're very happy to have Shalmali Shetty, our inaugural fellow in London. Just landed yesterday. I landed 2 days ago, you landed 4 days ago, so we'll mind us if we talk a little bit slower or not as vivacious as normal. But I want to hand the mic over to Smriti first to talk about what Serendipity Arts Foundation is and the festival, which just happened in December.
Thank you so much, Mala. Thank you, Noor. I can see you sitting right at the back and waving at us. But this was a really interesting journey for us. Thanks to Cliff, who's here, we got introduced to Noor and Mala, and it was an instant connection. And I think that's how partnerships really need to be. Serendipity Arts Foundation was founded in 2013 by Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal, who's our founder patron. It's a family trust, and we were a grant-giving body. We wanted to create impact in the arts, and so in 2015, we decided to do what we call the Serendipity Arts Festival, which is our largest offering in India. It's a multidisciplinary curated festival, and we wanted to address economies for state with culture. We wanted to address sustainability, accessibility, inclusivity, all the big things that we talk about. And we feel that culture is really a solution to get to the root of the problem. When we started the festival, we really didn't know what we were getting into. We chanced upon the city of Panjim, which was built to be a festival city. We looked at many examples like Edinburgh, Adelaide, and we wondered what the success was for the city and culture when they coexisted and what creative placemaking meant. 7 years down the line, actually 10 years down the line now, I keep thinking we've just done a couple of editions, but we've done quite a few. We are going to be doing our 8th edition this year in December. The city became our site. I mean, India has limited infrastructure, and we wondered how arts commissioning could progress in a country where infrastructure building was not the prime motive for the public or the private. It was an experiment. We weren't sure how we would do. I must say that we have failed many times and succeeded many times. We're very proud to say that today the state of Goa and the country appreciates the positive impact that the festival has had overall for the community, for the civic sensibilities, and about regeneration of the city. I know this is an example that we see a lot in the UK. For us, it was a first in the country, so we are very proud to be one of the first case studies for the government on how success can be held. The foundation does many initiatives through the year. A lot of you know about it, so I'll keep it quite short. We do residencies, we have scholarships, we do grants, and everything that is needed to sustain a cultural ecosystem. We have kind of taken small steps into understanding what are the support functions that need to be incubated so that the cultural ecosystem in India can really thrive. And what does that cultural ecosystem then do for cultural diplomacy? We're sitting here today with this great partnership because we believe that what we addressed with this fellowship was so important. We sit in India and we talk about diaspora, but what really is diaspora for us is something that Shalmali decoded. I think that exhibition in Goa got such great reviews because we saw something from a different point of view. We understood politics from a different point of view. And thank you, Shalmali, for bringing that great show to Serendipity. I won't speak much, but there's a short video that we can play. I don't know if you have sound, so I'll probably talk over it. This is glimpses from our last year of the festival. We do have sound. some of the glimpses you saw were non-proscenium-based theatre pieces that we've commissioned. We commission over 40% of the festival because we believe that's the only way we can look at progress in terms of technology, in terms of space, in terms of where art is really happening. One of the projects that I do want to talk about is called Postcards from Goa. It was a commissioned theatre piece by Vikram Furkan. He traced the gay history of Goa through a piece in which you walked through the city, the theatre walked with you, and people followed the actors to understand what was really the chronology in which the gay history unfolded in Goa. And I think it's projects like that that go into the public that make Serendipity Arts Festival what it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Smriti. And I was very lucky to be able to experience this December. I don't have a high-tech video, but I'll give a short introduction to what Art South Asia Project is for those who are not aware of it already. So Art South Asia Project, I'm going to shorten it, our acronym is ASAP. ASAP is an arts and education development non-for-profit based in London. We were set up in 2021. And we work with the 5 countries of India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, and the UK diaspora. We're set up to really primarily help art institutions and art professionals. So we believe that artists get a lot of support. So we thought, how can we support the players on the ground who are actually going to enable artists to be able to do the work that is the most important thing for the art ecosystem. So like Serendipity, we are a grant-giving organisation. And we give 3 grants a year of £10,000 each. And each grant comes under 4 divisions. So the 4 divisions are research, archiving, publications, and professional development. And this year, we were really lucky to support Columbuscope's publication in Sri Lanka. Sorry, I'm going to assume some people know where these places are and some people don't. And then Geoffrey Bawa Trust in Sri Lanka, where we supported their archiving project for the artist Enna de Silva's Batiks and Botany. And then we also supported a much smaller initiative in India called Editions Jojo, where we supported their podcast called The Glass Eye, which is all about lens and image culture. And I'd really encourage you all to look it up because it's brilliant. They've spliced it with archival footage from old Kodak kind of archives, and they've got 2 or 3 podcast episodes out already, and we're supporting two seasons of it. So we're really excited about that. Then the other thing we do is also online programming. So I run our talk series. We do talks, for example, ranging how to write a successful funding application, or we did a book launch with the writer Rahab Alana about his South Asian photo reader. Or we did one on what is an art fair. So we were with Uma Jacob for India Art Fair and Zain Majub of Art Dubai. So there will be more talks, but that's just a little space, and we can check them out on Art South Asia Project's website. Our website is also host to a global library of global galleries who work with South Asian artists, regional galleries in South Asia, so these are commercial galleries, museums, non-profits, festivals including Serendipity, Kochi Biennale, Kathmandu Triennial, and residencies. And also, if we can't find a grant with us, we also have grants library. So if there's something you can't get support through ASAP, there are lots of different support places to find, or there's lots of different lists of places to find it. Sorry. And then the other thing we've started rolling out in 2022 was partnership programming. So we partnered with the British Council Pakistan for their UK New Seasons Perspective, where we went to Lahore and we managed to work with three individuals on art and research to give them grants to do anything about art forgery, to do something on professional development, which was an online talk, beginning of our online talk series actually. And also an amazing publication about inventing the nation, about how South Asian collections have been looked at in South Asia, but also in the UK by Sophia Balagambala. And then we went to Lahore and we got to work with Coma Museum, which is the first modern contemporary private museum in Pakistan. So we got an entire workshop day, and I think that was the first time we really saw on the ground how impactful our work was, because it sold out, the workshops and talks sold out within 24 hours. So, and we had people kind of like every day we were changing the wait list. And then not this year, 2023, we partnered with Saskia Fernando Gallery to do their online talk series, Support Local Art, where we got introduced to Sri Lankan modern contemporary art, and we did a 3-part series. This actually led us to work on a project which Noor and I have just come back from in Sri Lanka, called Kala. And Kala was, or is, a platform for South Asian modern contemporary art. And this year it was focusing on Sri Lankan modern contemporary art at the Lionel Wendt Art Centre. And the exhibition was curated by a brilliant young curator called Mariam Begum, called Pivot Glide Echo, looking at the legacies of Lionel Wendt in modern contemporary Sri Lankan art. And ASAP was really fortunate to be the programming partner, so we did all the talks, we did all the workshops, and we're still doing online talks, so keep an eye out on our Instagram and Colour's Instagram. And obviously, with Serendipity Arts Festival, which is the last by no means least partnership, which we're really happy to have done our inaugural Curatorial Fellowship with. And I've been talking a lot, so I think it's a really nice opportunity to give Shalmali the mic, and over to you to talk about your experience.
Okay. Hello, I'm Shalmali, and I'm not a big talker, but here we are. My time has arrived, so I think I'll just dive into it. I am the curatorial fellow of SAF and ASAP's 2023 initiative, and it's the first time that they're collaborating on this, and I'm grateful for all the support I've received to have been able to do what I did, and we'll get into that. But just for a little bit of a background about myself, I came to the UK in 2019 to do my master's in curatorial practice from the Glasgow School of Art, and I've been working in Glasgow between India and the UK since 2020 as a writer, curator, and an artist. Before that, I did my undergrad from the Department of Painting, Faculty of Fine Arts in Baroda, and my master's in the School of Arts and Aesthetics in JNU, New Delhi. So I think with all of these different sort of practical backgrounds, I've tried to bring all of that together through the production of the curatorial. And the last 3 years I've actually been trying to figure out how to, sort of go ahead with. It's difficult, being a freelancer and living in a different country, not your own. Glasgow has been beautiful. It's been very supportive with the different projects that I've done, different teams that I've been part of. But to receive the curatorial fellowship this year has really changed a lot for me. And literally the latter part of this year is not something I would have imagined happening until it started happening. And so I was able to put this exhibition together. And I actually had another exhibition in Glasgow in between all of this. So it was within 3 months, there was 2 exhibitions and another writing grant that I received. So I'm like, when things happen, it happens all at once. Otherwise, I'm like just laid back. So it's been a mad rush since July, and that's also. What I mentioned, being a freelancer also means, because I'm on a certain kind of visa, which requires a renewal every year. It's a whole different ball game. So much paperwork and so much stress of being under surveillance of sorts. And so this year I've got the global talent visa. I received the day before, and I got here yesterday. So everything was so last minute, but I made it for this talk today. I'm so happy to be here in person. Thanks to all of you thanks to all of you as well for being here on a Friday morning, afternoon. So I think we can do I've prepared a presentation, and Mala's going to keep a watch on the time because I can talk forever, though I'm not a talker. Yeah. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh gosh. My other password for the other laptop is open. So.
Global talent visa number as well.
Okay. So I'll just begin on the process through the fellowship. So I received news about this at the end of July, and I was very excited. It also meant I had to prepare myself mentally for everything good. And so the first 3 months, the fellowship was divided into 2 parts, a 3-month research period and a month of preparations towards the final exhibition in December in Goa. And the first 3 months, I was able to, with ASAP's support and facilitation, I was able to, ASAP helped me connect with a number of artists, curators, and academics in the UK, between Glasgow, Liverpool, Manchester, and London. And it's not, like I said, it's something that's come at a time like this, where I'm still trying to, that push was really necessary in order to find a platform to be able to, do things on a larger scale. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we'll just wait for it to start so I have a thing to talk about.
Oh, it's gonna come. It did arrive.
It's serendipity. Tech always fails with us. Always. It's a sign. And we still go ahead and say we'll do video art and everything's failing. We're like, no, we're going to do video art. Some godforsaken reason. There you go.
Cool.
Oh, we go.
Yeah.
And then if you just say next slide.
Yeah.
Shalmali,
Yeah.
so-
Next.
Yeah. You want to?
Yeah. Should we move on to the next slide? Yeah. That's okay. So the 3 months I was in the UK, traveling between London, Glasgow mostly, and also I got to see the Liverpool Biennial this time. I got to see Frieze and a number of other exhibitions and openings and launches that happened during the Frieze week, which I don't think would have been possible otherwise, to have access to all of this. And it's so important for an emerging curator to be able to, be introduced to a number of people, take part in different events, or just even make our presence felt, I suppose. Should we move on to, these were some of the exhibitions in happening at this time, and with Noor was like a fairy godmother. She gave me access to a lot of them. Like Yayoi Kusama has been on for like a year, more than a year now. I haven't been able to, get any
Trusty
access.
Sotheby's preferred.
Also. Yeah. So next slide. So this is more from the weeks that I spent in London. Exhibitions and also meeting Grayson Perry. I just visited his exhibition in Edinburgh a week before, and to see him in person, I was like, wow, I see the work of art themselves. And also Alberta Whittle invited me for her talk as part of the Venice Biennale British Council program this year, Alberta being a very good friend and an artist based in Scotland, who also represented Scotland last year at the Venice Biennale. And I also got to visit the exhibition Beyond the Page in Milton Keynes, and all of this was facilitated by ASAP and the research funds that I received through them. Next slide. Sorry, Aman, I've put you in. So this was visiting, doing some studio visits. Aman is here at his studio, Amba, and also Shiza Dawood. I met Shiraz. I've been following Shiraz's work. I wanted to include him in my exhibition. Wanted to work with him for a very long time. And his exhibition was upstairs happening at Cork Street. And I got to, that was my first sort of meeting with him. I came across Manim's work at the Frieze. This time, this is what I included in my exhibition as well. I also got to meet Nusrat Ahmed at the Manchester Museum, and it was, talking about different approaches to curation and collections, and sort of engaging with the audience is what it was a 3 to 4 hours conversation I had with Nusrat, and so it was a lot of learning that I was able to do. Also, I met Emily, who's Emily Hanam from the V&A, and meetings with Virangana, Kumari Solanki, and Alina Kaku, academics and curators, who really helped me sort of shape my exhibition, introduce me to artists who I might not have necessarily known. So all of this sort of, the 3 months was spent doing that. And doing my own research as well. So something that happened was I was lost in my own research world and thinking about all of the things I could have done, not realizing that I'm running out of time. So, so I think the last month, the month of October was a bit of a rush, because I'm like, oh, it's not far. It's just 2 more months for the exhibition to take off, which meant I need to get in touch with artists. And that was a tough job, but it also came through easily. Thankfully, everybody I emailed agreed to participate. And I'll come to that part of the process as well through the next slides. Next. So just some excerpts from the notes, random notes I made. Some of my initial research and inquiries changed over the period of this fellowship, because my initial proposal was to work with the history of water, and that's something because I come from the south of India, I am not necessarily connected with the history of the partition in that happened largely in the northern regions of India and South Asia. So neither my parents, neither my grandparents. So there's no generational history of that trauma of the partition. So I was thinking of other ways, because my research largely also deals with memories, archives, hauntology, and material culture studies. I've been thinking about the other kinds of histories that have led to displacement and migration across the global south. And living in the UK has opened up a lot of avenues, especially meeting members of these families that have been displaced through other forms of migration. And so I was thinking about the histories of water, and having also worked with a number of Black artists and communities in Glasgow, the water takes precedence in their histories. And so thinking about how that has affected our histories, I initially wanted to get in. I did speak to Aisha Hamid, who talks about the Black Atlantic and the Brown Atlantic. And although our timelines did not match, we couldn't continue our collaboration. And that's also the reason I had Shiraz Beju as part of my exhibition, because his work and practice largely revolves around the histories of the Indian Ocean. But then that was a very very specific strand of inquiry that would have probably required a whole PhD, and not 3 months, but like 4 years to, research. That's what I realized. And also because there aren't so many artists working in this area, it was difficult for me to, continue in that specific direction. So I expanded that to include other strands of research, especially migration in the northern regions, or the history of the partition, the ongoing effects of colonialism and displacement, and what's currently happening with genocides and wars across the world. And so sorry, I'm just going to go through my own points to remember. Yeah, so the initial list of artists I sent to ASAP was huge. It was like 25 or 30 artists, everybody I wanted to work with. All these celebrity artists I thought I could just get in touch with and be like, oh yeah, because I've been following their work and I really wanted to. This opportunity was big enough for me to be able to get in touch with them. But then, I had a very specific sort of idea and a story I wanted, or a curatorial premise that I wanted the artist to respond to. And this was, I'll come to that as well. But also another aspect of my exhibition, initially with Serendipity, we discussed having just a plug and play format, which would have just been films and working with artists working with moving images. But that changed because I realized I cannot sit through films or artist films for too long myself. I get too distracted, even, and especially in a festival format, that would have been challenging for. I don't think anybody would have sat through my exhibition entirely just to watch the films. So that got me to include other forms of practices, which were Mane Vasif's series of photographs that we just saw from Frieze, and Samakshi Singh, who's based in India, working with thread. And also working with text-based works. That's something I'll come to with my story and the curatorial sort of essay, not essay, the curatorial note. Yeah, I think we can move on to the next slide. So coming to the exhibition itself, these are the 5 artists I finally worked with. There was a 6th artist, which I'll also speak about, which is Sophia Karim. But we'll come to that, yeah. Can we move on to the next one? That's the image of the poster. This is a scene from the backyard of my grandmother's house that was demolished in 2017. So that's a window. That's where my grandmother was born. That's where my mother was born. That's where I was born. And when I went back in 2017 or 18, this is what was left of it, a broken window frame. And so I sort of reworked the entire image to sort of bring this cloud into the picture, sort of thinking about the end of things, like, the shroud. I've called it the shroud, and the cloud is like your memory getting clouded in a sense, and losing. Thinking about how memory works, basically. Next image. This is a brief about my exhibition. I'll just read through. The nights will follow the days is premised on the story of the haunting reappearance of a woman who allegedly, I can't say the word, allegedly, returns to her home numerous times, much after her passing. She finally returns for one last time before the house she used to inhabit, a link, a refuge, an emotion, an association, an identity, was demolished. Taking this as a metaphor, the exhibition navigates across themes of spectral memories and narratives associated with spaces, places, lands, and oceans. Through the works of 5 artists, it further explores personal truths, displays generational memories, and histories affected by colonialism, migration, and political landscapes, enabling a return to a place of remembrance and imagination. How long do we have?
We have about 6 minutes.
Oh my God. Next slide. I'll quickly go through this. So this is the final map, the floor plan of how the exhibition looked. It changed a number of times over the period of a month with unprecedented changes that came through. So here I can talk about Sophia. Sophia Karim is an artist and activist based in London. And she was going to be part of the exhibition as well. Although we realized eventually that her works were too political to be showcased in the context of India, the current India, and in Goa, especially in Goa. And so I think it was a number of conversations we had. It was a collaborative effort from both Sophia and my end to sort of work on one space dedicated to her works, which talks about political prisoners and the release of political prisoners, especially Ananth El Tumde. and Professor Sai Baba. But that we realize might not. SAF, I think you can talk about this as well later, how censorship works within festivals and institutions. So in order to not censor her work or sort of subdue the tone of her sort of confrontational practice, we amicably decided not to go ahead with that collaboration for now. But it was amazing to be able to have these conversations with Sophia and learn so much from her, which is going to call for future collaborations outside of that geographical landscape. So, sorry, just a quick one, if you could go back. So yeah, we had Manem Wasif here, Samakshi's thread work there, so my story, sort of go in, have Shiraz's 2-channel video projection, Samakshi's video projection, Amba's, there were 3 prints on that side, and a sculptural work, and Alia's film in this room, and you sort of come. That's that's how you navigate the space. Next. The story, this is the story about it's an interesting story. It might take up some time, so I'm not going to get into it. It's up on my website if you would like to read later. So the story, the curatorial essay was in the form of a story about the haunting reappearance of this woman who was my grandmother's neighbor. And interestingly, she passed away in 1992, which was the year I was born. And I also made this connection with the demolition of the Babri Masjid, which is an ongoing, political, and especially this year with, let's not get into that. But so she has returned to this place, her home, her property, her sort of identity numerous times through not just stories and recollections and memories of people who've known her, but also apparently through bodies, because her own sister was possessed with the spirit of this woman. So I found this to be a very interesting sort of starting point about the return of people beyond their lives, and thinking about how, so even in 2017, my uncle experienced this moment where he thought he saw this woman, recognized her to be this person from 25 years ago. And so my question is whether the ghost of this woman actually returned, or was it the memory of my uncle, given the specific space, time, and context that sort of returned so we'll get into that story later if we have some time. So taking that as my starting point to thinking about the larger ideas of migration, displacement, and memory, dreaming of a future, dreaming of a nostalgia for a future, in a sense. And if memories do remain within a landscape beyond the presence of just the body. And this is getting into the philosophies and readings around spectral landscapes, and how landscapes become an archive of the traumas, the histories of the past, and everything that has occurred beyond our lifetimes. Next slide. So views from the exhibition. We're finally here. That's Manem's works were talking about the Rohingya refugees and their sort of ongoing crisis and experiences that they have gone through. A very painful sort of text that talks about a moment in time when they're trying to escape across the Bay of Bengal. That's the seascape. That's Manem Wasif's. This is Samakshi Singh's thread work. It's made entirely of thread, and she has replicated a part of her grandmother's house. So it's a ghostly sort of presence of that memory of a house that has lived through the partition. And that's Shiraz Berju. It's a 2-channel video of the history, the ongoing. So this is a part of the Chagos Island archipelago that has experienced this history of colonialism, and they're still fighting for their rights to get their land back Mauritius and Chagos archipelago as well. That's a part of Somakshi's video. That's it. That's a part of the door that sort of transforms over a period of 9 minutes into this mess of thread. And next, that's Ambassador Bennett. We've got her sculptural work and 3 of her prints that talks about her grandmother's journey from India to the UK during the partition and the aftermath of it. This is Alia Syed's work here. This is a video, 28 minutes long. And these were some of the things that I sort of intervened with little notes. So this was my sort of approach to storytelling and how a curatorial essay can be worked through a story that reaches people and also brings all of the works together. So these are excerpts from little things, books that I've read or conversations that I've had that I sort of put up across the exhibition. I think I've taken up too much time. Yeah, we'll just run through the slides then. Yeah. Yeah, some of the challenges. Yeah. This is part of Somakshi's video that becomes this mess of thread. So a lot of different kinds of challenges that I think were very important. Importantly, is asking myself this question of whether I'm actually cut out to be a curator a number of times, because I think that this process really helped me understand so much beyond the comfort that I've experienced in Glasgow and the community there. And this was because I also chose to work with mid-career artists who, for my reason was because I'd be working with people who've already got a lot of research they've done, and that's a learning process for me as well. But that also meant they don't have the time, so I couldn't have been getting in touch with them a month before being like, actually, I'm doing this exhibition. I'd like you to participate. All of them agreed to, but that also, there were questions of like concerns around time and trust, and if I'll actually be able to, take it upon myself. And eventually, everything worked out well. So challenges with political work, especially thinking about how ASAP is facilitating, being in the UK, facilitating conversations across the South Asian diaspora and the regions, we can come to all of that. Next. Yeah, we can come to this as well. Yeah. There's some bibliography. Just a few things there's a whole list that I misplaced that I had to come up. I had to collect a few this morning, so I put it up. Kissa is a movie that I watched a few years ago, which also talks about the partition and the ghost. Very interesting. Next. Just a little bit about this, a minute. So this is just the last 2 lines from my story. That's the poster. And this was a month ago. I was looking up my grandmother's house on Google Maps. It's been a few years that I'd visited. It's now demolished, but when I came across this, there's literally a cloud covering that part, that part of my grandmother's house is concealed behind that cloud. And this was something I'd made much in advance 2 months ago, 3 months ago. So I think I was like, what's happening? Does it really mean the end of a whole sort of family history we had there? There's nothing I can see beneath that. Next, so I just wanted to share. Next. So that's all of us. Some of us are missing, especially the Serendipity team.
Fun team.
So yeah, that's everybody I've named who've been part of this process, and a huge thank you for making this happen. And my whole Glasgow family as well. Yeah, so that's the end, I think. Is there another slide after this? No. Cool. Perfect. Sorry I took out longer than I should have.
with. Thank you, Shalmali. And you're the fellow, so this is your space. And it's been, even just watching that in the reflective process for us has been, I'm speaking for Smriti, but I feel that definitely just watching how much you learn and just watching those moments feed from there to your exhibition to afterwards, and these learnings is really valuable. I don't know if we want to start, we won't take too long because I'm sure there might be, we'll maybe try and just have 10 minutes of us talking, and then if there's any questions, we'll open them up. Just talking about why we partnered. And
are you asking me or are you going to talk
no,
about the
let's
partnership?
start and then you can go. Obviously, you've had Smriti introduce Serendipity and I've introduced ASAP. Our missions are very aligned, and we as an organisation, we work a lot with South Asia and we work with the diaspora, but we wanted to figure out how could we work better with the diaspora and how could we understand it more, because we found even in the application process, we didn't get that many applications in the UK. Lots of people from India or Sri Lanka or Pakistan were like, why can't we apply? And I was like, but this is not the mission of this fellowship, and I hope maybe in future editions we'll be able to open it up. But we really wanted to access that kind of lived experience of being diaspora. And as Shalmali has shown, even just having been here for 4 years now, that change of being in the UK and reflecting back to India was something we really wanted to impart through this fellowship. And it being our first curatorial fellowship as well, we're so happy to choose Serendipity to work with, and that you chose us as well. And our partnerships, as we've said, are between the UK and South Asia. So this is our first proper one with India. Would you like to kind of expand on?
Sure. I think we learned a lot. I think it's very easy to say, let's start a fellowship. It takes a lot. Yeah. And I think the clarity of what is expected by the institution, by the fellow, I think we went through a journey where we felt that sometimes defining boundary conditions is very important. We're a public festival. We work with the government. There are many things that we can talk about on this forum. There are many things that we can't talk about. But also the relationship of the curator with the institution is very important. And I think we took that for granted. Yeah. I think it was very important for us to explain to the fellow of how do curators work with institutions, and all of you here would have gone through it. And I know that Ruchira and we have spoken often about it, that what is the role of the institution and where do you place it in society? And then the person who's the creative professional, what is their role to the institution and to the society? I think those questions were raised, and I think when we run it the next year, it'll have a lot more boundary conditions that could help define this relationship.
Yeah, definitely. And with our mission as really being supportive, there's also how much support can we as a two-person team provide for a fellow. Obviously, we love doing it, but as we grow as an institution, we're not going to be able to provide as much support the next time as well. So I think just learning in that way, we can hold hand as much as possible, but I think when we choose, or not choose, but when we do the next fellowship, having those boundaries is going to be really, really important for us, because we learned a lot. And it was the first one, a pilot edition is always
pilot projects.
Pilot projects, exactly. And I think also one of our learnings is, unfortunately, I mean, ASAP, we work with all 5 countries of South Asia. We couldn't include the Pakistani diaspora because we were not sure they would get a visa. And there are instances of people getting opportunities at the India Art Fair and not being able to get visas. So we thought there's no point giving you partnership and then not being able to actually follow through. So I think learning how can we in the next edition navigate that and be that maybe they can't come to India, but we can still do a fellowship, because we as institution have to work with all 5 countries. So that's kind of one of our biggest learnings, I think. And also on that front with choosing the artists as well, we don't want to censor. We don't want to have, and we don't want you to have to be in that tricky position. And actually, I really commend you, Shalmali, for when she was deciding about Sophia Karim, she contacted Sudarshan. I'll let you maybe do you want to talk about that briefly? But I really thought that was amazing and really resourceful of you to kind of take all of the advice that you could to talk about that.
Yeah, so Sophia's came to a situation where both of us did not know how to say no to each other because we'd worked so well together over the past month. We had different approaches. We came up with different approaches to presenting the work, but realizing that we cannot tone down her activism for the sake of an exhibition was what, that's when we were like, oh, how do we go ahead with this? And I think I was prepared to take on anything. I mean, even if it meant, you know, some sort of backlash from the public, I was sort of ready. But then it also meant I hadn't experienced something like that before. So it could have been
very stressful.
Very stressful. And well, yeah, beyond stressful, I guess, because I was also in the process of doing my visa at that point. So, and being a young curator, I think we want to take on adventures, but it's not always the best thing to do. And Sophia realized that, even with Alia for that matter. Alia, there was another, she's a Pakistani filmmaker based here. There was a work that I wanted to show, but we couldn't eventually do that. And Alia was wondering why, how, you know, institutions and curators are probably actually enabling censorship in a sense. And I think it's one thing to be based in the UK and have these conversations. It's another to actually
have them
be there in person. And that would have been me solely in India trying to face that. So I think what we did was I got, Sophia initiated a conversation with Shalmali Shetty, who in 2019 had curated part of the exhibition as part of Serendipity. And that conversation really helped us. That felt like he was mediating the situation, because he's like, these are the challenges I face, because he had presented, this was during the CAA protests. Yes. And so he was like, this is what happened to me. Are you prepared for something like that? Do you think you can take it on yourself? Sophia also felt like this was too much of responsibility for me to do at this stage. So we didn't go ahead. I also spoke to Shukla Sawant, who's my professor from JNU. And Shukla had a very different approach. She said, once you're in it, you're in it. Because JNU has been all about...
she's my professor too. I did my dissertation under...
She did tell me. Yes. So Shukla has been a huge support in all of these conversations. And she is an activist herself. So because I was in JNU during the 2017 phase when we were all slapped a sedition case against and called anti-nationals, there's a very different approach. She's like, just go ahead with it. If you're in it already, you are in it. You have to face the consequences. But I was like, I am not sure if I can do that yet. I'm not at that stage in my career as well to either become a big name because of a
sensational news in the headlines of the paper.
Yeah, or that's the end of my career. And it also was a responsibility I was holding towards SAF as well as ASAP, because this was the first initiative. I did not want future iterations of this to be affected. So yeah. If I've answered that.
No.
I mean, this is like a really sensitive subject. Manal is sitting there. We were in the middle of everything during the CAA, CAB. I think every year of the festival, because we work with the public. And
maybe you want to say what it is, just in case anyone in the audience
I don't know the full form of CA anymore. What was it? I mean, it was, sorry. We just got so attached with the word CAA and CAB that we've completely forgotten what that really means. But basically there was this whole revolt in India, because there's a lot of confusion in India, I must say. People are not in a good space. Institutions are in a terrible space, because even though we do claim to have freedom of speech, there is no freedom of speech. And I don't think we want this conversation to go down that road, because it'll become a group therapy session at this point. But I think doing anything in India in a public space has its perils. You don't know how it's going to turn. At this point, sensitivities are very high. A lot of people have different views. The elections are coming up. Last year, in 2019, when we had the incident with Dastan Live, which was a performance group that sang a poem written by a Hindu saint 200 years ago, was found offensive by a government official who felt that it was against his Hindu sentimentality. And it became a really big issue for the festival. And that's when we started thinking of what is the role of the institution and what is the role of the public. And when does the public support you and when does the public not support you? And what do you do with collateral damage? We have 3,000 artists working. We could have gotten up and said, no, we support what they've said on stage. We would have to shut down the festival. But maybe those artists who don't perform after that don't agree with what we are saying. And so whose viewpoint do we agree with? What is our policy on this? And it's been quite an investigative process for us for the past 5 years, because we do understand that politics are going to change, but we still have to face them as an institution. So when I talked about Shalmali coming up with Sophia Karim, and we've actually worked with her uncle a lot.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get him visa either, Shahidul Alam. He was on Zoom for one of our calls because the Indian government had refused to give him visa in 2019. We have realized that we need to be sensitive to what's happening in the country. I think it's very important to understand the worldview and for the curator to decide what is dissent and what is propaganda. And we leave it to the curator to then say that can they stand up for it. If they feel they can stand up for it, the institution is there. If they feel they can't stand up for it, the institution cannot stand up and take value for the artistic commitment that the curator has made. And that's the position that we're in. I do hope that things in India become better. The Pakistan issue is a very big issue. We're very excited. We're planning to do something in London. We're hoping that we can really address South Asia by doing something in London. We will have to look for neutral ground. Currently, India isn't the neutral ground where we can really work with all the countries that we want to work with. But with partners like ASAP, we have great opportunities, right?
Yeah.
We can do something in UK that we can't do in India.
Exactly, and I think being in the UK, and that's why we're really in the UK, because then we can work with everyone, and we partly also are really interested in working with Nepal and Sri Lanka, because Nepal and Sri Lanka are the only two countries where all regions can get a visa to go.
Yeah.
And it's figuring out. I mean, Sri Lanka is also a very volatile situation,
Yes.
so we're gonna figure it out.
We'll get there.
We'll get there eventually. But I think hopefully with the UK edition of Serendipity, we can also try and get to that. And also, we really wanted to protect you, Shalmali, in a volatile situation.
Yes.
Where we're on these calls, and Shalmali was like, but I want to include it. We're like, please don't. And also with ASAP, it's our first real thing in India. We don't want to be banned from coming back. So
they won't ban
they
you.
won't ban, but you know.
Just like kind of
And
murmurs.
this is a value of having this conversation, even in the
Yes.
UK, is being able to have these kind of difficult situations. And we've spoken a lot, and so maybe there might be a few questions from the audience about what we've spoken about. We're also happy to keep talking, but please. Anyone? Yep. Do you want to take the mic? Or?
Thank you so much for sharing that and sharing the whole experience. My question's to Shalmali, because it was a curatorial fellowship, and you spoke a little bit about your educational experience before that. But I wondered what you felt about using the word curator for yourself, because of course the word is broad in many senses, but working in public institutions, it's also restrictive in many senses. And you know, we're in social media, there's this paradox between it being almost too broad, where everyone is a curator, but also almost too restrictive, where you have to be climbing a certain hierarchy to reach a certain position. So I wondered, as a young person starting out, how comfortable you felt with using that word, or with having to prove how much experience you have before that to, you know, call yourself a curator.
Thank you for the question. I think to begin with, I wasn't very comfortable calling myself a curator until I had a degree in curation. And because it requires a whole different kind of, understanding of not just the research and research interests, but also communication and logistics, admin work that I did not necessarily, as an artist or an academic, know about when I was working in India. And so this, I think that to call myself something like that, I was like, I need to have a degree degree in curation and the practices to understand the history of it, to understand what our role in the current political, and I keep saying political because curation is very political to a large extent. So I think the comfort to use the word curator came only after that, and after I had done a few projects. I've been working as a producer rather with a lot of these artists and institutions in Glasgow. And again, it was not until my first exhibition, solo exhibition, and my debut exhibition in Glasgow in September this year that I felt entirely confident to call myself that. And having received the curatorial fellowship around the same time, what gave me that sort of courage to do that. But I don't know. So I keep interchanging between different designations for myself, depending on the context. I'm an artist, I'm a writer, I'm a producer, I'm a curator. So I think at this point, I'm just calling myself a multidisciplinary practitioner. And depending on the context, I call myself that. But I don't know if I've answered. Yeah. Anybody else? You facilitate.
If there's no other questions? Oh, okay, Rosa, thank you. I'll just come over to you. Thanks, Rosa.
Thank you so much. It was really interesting to hear about the project. And I was reflecting on your talks about getting visas and censorship and all the difficulties that you were facing. And then maybe, thinking about why you chose storytelling as such a methodology. And maybe you could talk about how you got to that point, maybe, and what was it in reaction to all of this, or is it important in your life as a kind of savage and multidisciplinary practitioner?
So coming to that, it was one part of my presentation that I was not able to cover. I think storytelling, because I've always understood things from a very personal point of view. I am not able to understand bigger things unless I've experienced it myself. And so there's that personal touch that I want to bring into anything that I do. It starts from my sort of point of view to expand to understanding bigger things. And so storytelling became a methodology wherein I also realized I'm not big on curatorial writing, I'm not big on like sitting through viewing exhibitions for too long and sitting through films, which is also why I changed the format a little bit. And these are some things that I wanted to work on to come up with a different approach in order to be able to sort of connect with the larger audience, not just the artistic community. And given that it was a festival in Goa where all kinds of public would be there, also because my exhibition was in a space strategically placed between the Vadera Art Gallery with two very big artists. Yeah. And the Goa Familia on the other side that sort of invited the local Goan community, and the Serendipity residency downstairs, which had a whole student community coming to see it. It meant that I would be sort of catering to a larger public of sorts. And I know how I personally cannot read through curatorial notes myself because I'm like, it's just going over my head. I don't know what's happening. And so I wanted to try a different approach where I'm telling the story of a ghost story, of something as touching as a ghost story of this woman who returns due to, it's a very touching story, and that's something you can read later. So how do I expand that to understanding bigger concepts and readings around migration and displacement and emotions and identity and gender, all of that. And the response I also got from a lot of the viewers was a very welcome sort of feedback, because lots of them said, oh, this has happened, we've come across such experiences in Goa as well. And Goa having a very long history of colonialism and settlement of sorts. So lots of that happened. A lot of people were able to connect with the exhibition through this, something as simple as a story. When I was talking about, the Rohingya refugee crisis, for example, connects to this story. Shiraz's was, a lot of people thought it was a little more complicated to understand, but these elements of, that he used as metaphors also sort of related to the story. So I think story for that, storytelling as a methodology for that reason became my sort of approach. And I don't know if it entirely worked with, the little notes that I put up across the space, trying to connect the different elements. Also because there were technical issues such as the font was too small, the lighting was not the best. So I think storytelling is also just about the personal sort of connection I wanted to build with the audience there.
Thank you so much, Shalmali. And we actually selected you because of the story. We got all of these curatorial texts with philosophers like Merleau-Ponty or Foucault, and we were like, oh.
They're literally all there as part of, hauntology.
But the point is, they weren't like pressed into our faces, and I think the story was so innovative and novel, and that was really why we selected to work with you. I was remiss to not mention our supporters for this project, which are the Faizal and Shabana Foundation. We were really lucky to show them around the festival, and they absolutely loved it, and they really connected because they're from Mangalore as well, and they connected with your stories and that. And also a huge thank you to Noor Aslam, who's at the back and a little bit ill, but she's here. And to Priyanka as well, who's also at the back, and Manal. We couldn't have done it without the huge Serendipity team and our small little ASAP team. So I am just going to say thank you to everyone for joining, and we hope that you will keep updated with our future partnerships and with Shalmali's amazing career.
And come to the festival in December.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.